This is Kevin Riper from the Finance Department. Tonight's topic is a proposed City Council policy for the Internal Control Integrated Framework, Information and Communication. The recommendation is that the Council adopt a resolution adopting the policy for information and communication of internal controls, which will define the City Council's internal control activities as they relate to information and communication of internal controls. Just two topics to discuss. A recap of the policies already adopted by City Council that are associated with the Internal Control Integrated Framework. We call it the ICIF for short. And a couple of specifics about the adoption of the recommended policy for today, the policy for information and communication of internal controls. So a quick recap. Back on September 1st of last year, City Council adopted the Internal Control Integrated Framework as a whole and the first four policies recommended by the Finance Department for the Internal Control Integrated Framework. Then in January, City Council adopted a fifth policy for the ICIF, and that was a risk assessment responsibilities policy for itself. And just a couple of months ago, City Council adopted a control activities, a development and implementation of internal controls policy as part of the ICIF. This evening's discussion is about the information and communication category and the Council's commitment to transparent and complete information and communication. At the end of this evening's presentation, I'll give a quick preview of the one remaining City Council policy as part of the ICIF. The policy in question tonight, Information and Communication of Internal Controls, defines Council's own internal control activities as related to the information and communication about internal controls. The guts of the policy is that it would reaffirm the City Council's commitment to hold management accountable for providing full and transparent financial information to the public. That is the main and overriding aspect of the recommended policy this evening. Next steps in the Internal Control Integrated Framework. In the spring, the city staff expect to engage a consulting firm to perform a comprehensive risk assessment. And the reason for that goes back to the risk assessment responsibilities policy adopted by City Council back at the beginning of January. That policy called for a citywide risk assessment by a consultant to look at risks above and beyond, in addition to those that the Human Resources Department's Risk Management Division studies. Enterprise-wide risks, internal control risks, other financial-oriented risks that aren't normally part of Human Resources risk assessment responsibilities. The second remaining task for fully implementing the ICIF, we are slated in the fall to bring the eighth and final ICIF policy first to the Finance and Governance Committee for their review and then to full City Council. And that's a policy on monitoring activities. The goal of the monitoring activities policy will be to show the Council, management, the entire organization, and the public how the city is going to track its own adherence to and progress on internal controls. It's both an educational tool and a reporting and accountability tool. So that's the last policy that will be coming to the City Council in connection with the ICIF adopted last September. Just to recap the recommendation, it's the City Council adopt a resolution adopting the policy for information and communication of internal controls to define Council's own internal control activities as they relate to information and communication of internal controls. And that concludes the presentation.